to be taking a look. Well, I'm going to be looking at the higher power storyline and changing who the higher power is since Vince McMahon made no sense. So, just a disclaimer, the build is going to be exactly the same. You know, I'm not going to explain the build. I'm just going to I'm just going to replace the higher power. The original higher power was Vince McMahon. And that was a weak payoff. So, who, I ask you, could replace Vince McMahon as the higher power? I have two in mind. James Mitchell or Kevin Sullivan. I'm going to choose Kevin Sullivan mainly because he was a wrestler turned manager, and James Mitchell was just a manager. So, and it's not going to be his 1999. Okay. Wrestling for Fans tells me to go with James, which makes sense since he was a cult leader of sorts, but it didn't last very long because that was ECW. So, and he had a version of the new church in TNA, so I guess it works. So, how would this work? Well, keep the build. And if you want to go see the build, look it up on the WWE Network. I'm pretty sure it's there. I'm not going to go into detail about the build because if I did, this would probably be like an hour-long video. I'm going to say this much. James Mitchell or Kevin Sullivan would work because they had an occult. They had an occult gimmick. Kevin Sullivan with his Satanist gimmick, along with his wife. Everyone knows her as Woman, Nancy Benoit, Nancy Sullivan. But back in the 80s, she was known as the Fallen Angel. James Mitchell would work because he's James Mitchell. And he looks like a demonic priest. I'm sorry. So yeah. James or Kevin, choose which one you want and replace Vince with Kevin or James. And if that would work. Anything would be better than Vince McMahon as the higher power. Again, Kevin Sullivan or James Mitchell. I'm Hardcore Christopher. Keep it hardcore, everyone. Well, no, that's not the end of the video, folks. The entire thing about Vince McMahon being the higher power that didn't make any sense is Undertaker kidnapped Stephanie, and Vince was enraged, and Vince enlisted the help of Kane, who Undertaker disguised himself as Kane. So, so, um, so for Vince to, and Undertaker's main target was Vince McMahon the entire time. So you're telling me that Vince planned the kidnapping of his daughter to lure Stone Cold Steve Austin into saving Stephanie from a darkness wedding. Then after so much build, so much hype, the higher power is none other than Vincent Kennedy McMahon, just to get to Austin. So and the corporate ministry, it was no longer the Ministry of Darkness, it was the corporate ministry, which made no sense. The Ministry of Darkness was there to counteract the corporation. So, yeah. James Mitchell would be like the demonic priest that summons the Undertaker to his side or something. And yeah, Kevin Sullivan or James Mitchell would work, and that's all I have to say about the higher power storyline. It was a great build. It had a bad payoff, and the payoff made no sense. So, yeah, I think Kevin or James would make a whole lot more sense, even though Kevin Sullivan was in WCW at the time as the Taskmaster. So you would have to have Kevin Sullivan jump ship. Don't know how you would figure that, but wrestling for fans. How would you... Who do you think would replace the higher power? Kevin Sullivan or James Mitchell? And why? And if it's Kevin Sullivan, how would you get him to jump ship from WCW? Because the Dungeon of Doom was born in 990. Let's see. Hogan came to WCW in 94. No. So yeah, if it's Kevin Sullivan, how would you make Kevin Sullivan jump ship to the WWF? I'm Hardcore Christopher. Keep it hardcore, everyone.